on a giant Jenga board.
So, Luke, could you just repeat that? I said, well, we gotta, Luke takes a long time to come up with something, what it really is he's good mannered and patient. But I like it my way. I like saying it my way better. So, so I said, well, we gotta wait for Luke to come up with something to acknowledge that he has nothing to say about these. What did you say?
Oh, that there's too many topics to pick from. The whole world's going to hell so fast that we have a overabundance of potential things to discuss, and look, it's hard to decide on just one to
It's
focus
all
on.
just noise at this point.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
right. It's like hard to pick something to talk about because there's so much going on. It's all
Yeah.
noise. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting time. It's like sleepwalking into catastrophe.
They're
Uh,
not much better than sleepwalkers.
sorry?
Pretty apt analogy. They're not much better than sleepwalkers out there.
Rudyard Lynch, What If Alt he put out a video today on a view of World War III. He didn't really create the scenario. He was more talking about just comparing the different powers and what their state of mind is and interest. And of course, I have the same exact viewpoint, which is, we're sort of the when back in 92, because I remember very explicitly, because I remember walking into the Barnes and Noble and looking at Foreign Policy, which was a journal on the bottom shelf against the wall from the door. And it's something, I can't remember what the title of the thing was. I'm like, yeah, it's over. And that was about the time that we figured out that democracy wasn't going to work. So, in other words, this idea that we were going to make the world modern had failed. Now, did it fail like communism failed? No.
The world was right.
What?
The world was right. They were right
Well,
to not choose our form of democracy.
right. Well, I mean, and so the problem was they framed it as democracy instead of liberalism,
Right.
right? And
Both are terrible.
well,
Both are terrible.
well, is it liberalism or classical liberalism? I don't think classical liberalism is terrible. It's fucking awesome. I think liberalism is just as bad as communism. Yeah, and Hop has been on that message since I've known him. The way we view democracy, which is what we call liberalism, is just a slow road to communism instead of the fast road to communism, and they both end up in the same place as collapse.
Sure. I mean, classical liberalism is incompatible with universal franchise, but it's only possible with specific demographics.
Correct. So that's really the answer, right? Is that we would just, because of the post-war pseudoscience, we can't say, well, you sort of need a demographic composition capable of classical liberalism to have classical liberalism. And frankly, that demographic composition exists really rarely in the world. And you also need a certain set of institutions formed in a certain sequence, right? You can't start out with religion and then state and fail at law and expecting classical liberalism. If you start out with state and then law and then religion, you might eventually get there, but you're not going to get there with every dependency chain of institutions. So that means you could have the right demographic and have the wrong civilization, right, and still fail. So we knew this back in the 90s, right? But we got this claim of victory when the Soviet Union fell, right? And it was a false. I'm trying to see if anybody's going to chime in here. A false impression of victory, right?
Well, they didn't kill communism.
What?
I said they didn't kill communism.
Is that true?
Yes.
No, that's like saying we communists didn't kill religion. because they're both
Hey.
religions. So it's,
That is a great frame.
you know, so you can't really
Because you
escape.
can't kill it.
You can't kill religion, so you can't kill communism because it's a religion.
Well, I mean, you can't kill like the religious impulse. Communism as a religion is a religion of hate. We could outlaw it.
Right, that's true. But in the sense that we are saying, well, did we? Well, I mean, it's like, does any person with any knowledge at all believe that communism is possible? No, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of people who are so desirous of that false promise that in other words, they think it's moral, that because they believe it's moral, it can happen, instead of can it happen, or whether it's moral or not. Now, we would say it's neither moral nor can it happen, but they might say it's moral and be difficult, and other people would say it's moral, it's moral and it isn't difficult, you just don't want to do it. Right? I'm like, it's not that I don't want to do it, it's that people don't behave that way. So so what were we getting at? Where were we going? The end of so this whole liberalism thing is coming to the same end that communism, socialism, and liberalism is coming to the same end, and the rest of the world is saying, well, either we don't want to do that because we have entrenched elites that don't want to let it happen, right? Which is really the remaining empires. Or we have entrenched elites that want to make it happen, which is that we like imams want to restore the Islamic empire. Or there are people who are like, well, we want it, but we don't want all your fucking liberal decadence. Thank you very fucking much. Right? Or we want it, but our people aren't ready for it until they mature into it. Right? There's this pretty practical spectrum, and it seems like everybody's reverting to their civilizational basis. Right? I mean, even Modi in India is, he's dressing that way on purpose to show that he's fundamentally a religious man. So Russia's trying to be an empire, China's trying to be an empire. India is being itself, which is basically doing what they think is the best they can do, which is beautiful. They can get away with, right? We're doing okay. And then we have failed states like Pakistan and Mexico and all those others going on in the world. So yeah, Luke is right. The world is turning to a fucking shitstorm, because it's because all our false promises have failed, right? The only thing that's succeeded is the industrial and scientific industrial revolution. Well, they call it an equence, and the empirical, agrarian, commercial, industrial and scientific revolutions, right? Those things have seemed to have benefited everybody, but those are in techne. They're not differences in social organization value. I mean, the Chinese are still familial, right? The Indians tell you that caste doesn't matter, except that every interaction you have with them, it's obvious that caste matters. Well, they say, well, it doesn't matter above the middle class. Well, I'd agree with that, right? But so anyway, so is it true that are we living in interesting times?
People are
Yeah,
all.
just oh, sorry.
No,
Go ahead,
Jacob,
Brandon.
please.
Yeah, it was just what you were saying there, Curt. It reminds me of Huntington's theory on the clash of civilizations. We see this common conflation of westernization and modernization, kind of in the West, but I think we'd all agree that it's much more expensive to westernize than to modernize.
Yes, that's correct. Great framing.
It's abundance. All those people are free to lean back on their biases because they're no longer using their strategy to move through the world. So Africa becomes more tribal. India leans on the caste system. The Middle East reverts back to Islam because we've afforded them the tool free of the pressures, and they can
I see.
say that those things are good without suffering the consequences of those things.
Right.
So release them from those things with technology.
So Jacob's saying that they can modernize, but if the degree to which they westernize, right, it will, if at all, will be the result of their experience with modernization. But the two can't go hand in hand. Right. You know, you see this, some of this in the Middle East. I mean, I certainly do, is that the new generation of young people that have got the internet, they're a lot more, right. They're coming along just fine. You know, what does that mean? It means in 100 years, it's going to be a different place. But at telling people we're going to, which is, I'm going to go back to, I like Jacob's framing. We sold democracy, which is westernization, when all we really needed to sell was modernization, right?
With the law.
What?
Not without the law. So
Right.
now you have the shit show that you have now.
That's the missing piece. I think in a lot of ways, modernization allows everybody to avoid westernization. So,
yes. So, well, I want to let's economically frame that. What's the cost of modernization? Not much. You get a huge fucking return out of it. But what's the social and political cost? So what's your status, etc., your myths, your traditions, your values of westernization? Well, that's hard. Well, westernization, you know, you say, well, is westernization what created industrialization, or did industrialization create westernism? You know, and the truth is that these two things have been with us for 5,000 years. So we see them as identical. Whereas for the rest of the world, if you become industrialized and you get to a majority middle class, which we mean in this case, disposable income, you're going to lead toward more westernization in some sense. Does that mean they're going to become decadent like us? No. No, I don't see that happening. I hope it doesn't happen. For their sake. I'm still trying to get a hold of Constantine, who does the update from Russia every day, because he's enough of an economist to have an adult conversation, and he's lived both, you know, he's from Russia, but he lived over here in the States for long enough to sort of get it. And so has he gone to Kazakhstan? I can't remember where he's gone to now. But it'd be fun to talk to him about this particular issue, because when I hear people in Russia talk, they're really they're pretty orthodox, right, and traditional, and the family is still the center of their world. So when you talk about this, you know, LGBTA, whatever the fuck it is now, you know, there's so many goddamn letters in there, I'm not really quite sure it is. That's
Rainbow Circus. Just
what?
Rainbow Circus.
Rainbow Circus. They find it incredibly offensive.
Just be aware, if you mean Constantine from trigonometry, that he has his own biases. He's another anti-white Jew. He's demonstrated that on several occasions.
Who are you talking about?
Constantine from trigonometry.
No. I'm talking about. That's the problem with Russia, is there's only like 5 men names, right? And every, you know, they've got 5 names for men and 5 names for women, and no, I can't remember his last name. He's very Russian. He's probably I would say genetically he might be his ancestry might be Georgian. A big round head. Used to be he boxed in college, one of those guys. And he was sort of like some of our guys. He wasn't very good online when he first started, but he's slowly getting there to be a pretty good talking head. So I'd like to talk to him because you could have the discussion about him and he could understand both sides. And so I would be interested to have that say, well, it's not in anybody's interest for Russia to fall apart, right? I mean, that's a fucking disaster, right? But it isn't, it is in Russian people's interest to devote their energy to economy rather than expansion. Right, I mean, to prosperity rather than expansion, because expansion just burns their economy. So, Russia still has the problem of what we had with the Wild West, right? I mean, they have a Wild East, so to speak, and we had a Wild West, so to speak. And so there are some problems, when you're built an empire trying to domesticate a territory, you have different problems from when you're a homogenous people where everybody's already in the middle class, right? I mean, a majority middle class civilization. So, I mean, we can't expect the exact same thing out of Russian civilization or Chinese or Indian, right? Or certainly not Islamic, because they're not small, homogenous, ethnocentric polities with primarily commercial interests. So I'd like to talk to him and see if we could get the discussion rolling about how easy it is to, I think I've told this to you guys before, how easy it is to make a constitution that prohibits decadence, right? While at the same time allowing rule of law. And I think I want to have that discussion, because that discussion between us and Russia neutralizes the problem of talking to our own people about it. Luke? I know it can see it. You got that body language thing going on.
No, it's just spin back.
I've learned situational awareness,
Right.
and other things from this guy, this author friend of mine, and now I can apply it to people like Luke.
Reading the signals. We're talking about modernization. So what I see, the pattern I'm seeing emerge out of it is modernization affords for greater opportunity to avoid responsibility, right, is what we're seeing. And so as we see countries modernize, we're seeing that their group strategies reemerge that are accounting for that avoidance of responsibility. So we're seeing religion pop up more. We're seeing caste systems pop up more, social structures pop up more that evolved to account for that avoidance of responsibility. Right. Where we're not seeing that happen right now is in the West, because the social structures that the West evolved to account for avoidance of responsibility, the monarchy, the aristocracy, the patriarchy, those things are still looked at hostilely in much of the West, right? So, but I think that those are going to need to reemerge in order to account for modernization.
In other words, we failed modernization too.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
Because the West is also seeing an avoidance of responsibility made possible by modernization.
So when you were talking, I was thinking, well, there's always this problem of agency, responsibility, and sphere of influence, right? Offset by sphere of parasitism, right? And so I'm thinking, well, something I wrote this morning in response to one of Lynch's videos is that, I have this problem of whenever you create wealth, you raise people up in classes, but classes are a reflection of your sphere of responsibility. And that's right. I mean, wealth is just the radius of responsibility. So, I mean, wealth is the returns on the radius of your responsibility. So, so what happens is you move people up, but there's sometimes, like when we moved Europeans up by the westward expansion, you have a reserve of people who are biologically capable and socially capable of responsibility expansion. but there's no opportunity for them because there's too much scarcity. And then you have the second problem of we've got people who are not capable of additional responsibility and agency that you also move up into influence. Right. And so they become customers, voters, talkers, whatever. And so I think the problem you see is that if you're Japan, you have a reserve that can be brought up. If you're China, they have a reserve that can be brought up. But some countries have no reserve. So if they modernize, what's happened? All you're doing is inventing new means of irresponsibility, right? I'm trying to put a construct behind what you were saying.
Yeah, well, the scarcity you're talking about, the way the West accounted for that scarcity was we pushed responsibility down and created more opportunities, at lower levels for responsibility. That's what, at least in my view, that's what classical liberalism was. It wasn't an expansion of what we allowed to people to behave, allowed people to engage in. It was a downward application of where we're going to hold or provide people the opportunity for responsibility. It was a non-intervention in people's expression of responsibility, a greater non-intervention in people's expression of responsibility, right? That's what classical liberalism looked like or was trying to be, right? It turned into this tolerance of everything type thing, but it was the initial push was to expand people's opportunities at lower and lower social levels, stratification levels for opportunities for responsibility, right? And so that's what it looked like. So
okay, so you're making another dimensional disambiguation, which is our civilization is organized to maximize the expansion of responsibility downward,
right,
whereas most civilizations are organized to minimize the responsibility downward. Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Law as a technology, culture as a property. We tried to export our culture to raise other people's up, but we should have exported our law.
Right.
So that they could raise their own cultures up.
So what we should have done is here's technology and here's law. What you do with it is is basically a statement of your stage of development and willingness to take on responsibility. What the law will do over time is demarcate people by responsibility, right?
Right.
Of course, then you run onto our problem, which is we've pushed responsibility down so far that the people who are incapable of it are rebelling by saying we actually can't. So
yeah, we crossed a lot. It started off as an aristocracy available to anyone capable of achieving the minimum standards. What it became was the illusion of aristocracy for everyone.
Right, when you can't have because they're not.
Right.
And it's not, and it does. It's like you meet plenty of good people who just don't have the IQ points or the attention span or whatever you want to call it, right? And they're good people and they do their best, but it's hard for them, right? Because we pushed it down too far. Now, is it good that they're good and responsible? Yes. But on the other hand, where other people would say, other cultures would say, no, you're virtuous in your irresponsibility. We would say, we have to care for you in your because of your inability to manage responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons like that the Christian religion took hold so well in the West is because it provides a status signal for that very low level responsibility, where where the form of responsibility is only I'm not going to do bad.
Yes.
It provides a status signal for that level of responsibility. I'm taking responsible for anything external to myself. I'm just taking responsibility for my own behavior. But that was enough at that lowest level of responsibility for us to provide a status signal for that through that mechanism of the church. So
right. And what I love about it in particular is it doesn't say you have to have all these political and international ambitions, right? It says you just have to be, it's basically do no harm, right?
Right.
It's even takes it farther and say, you'd be surprised at how effective exhaustive forgiveness is. is in making somebody who does harm not want to.
It's a transcendent ethic for children, lower class people. That's how you move from being a dependent and needing the people around you to not.
Right.
I think it's not sufficient. There have to be other incentives to do good.
Yeah, you're right. The point is that we have that hierarchy, right? We have the hierarchy of the Christian ethic, the rationalist ethic, and the empiricist ethic. We have that hierarchy.
We used to, yeah.
They were a mold which people could fill or shape their responsibility into. We don't have that mold anymore, so we don't have any mechanism to even know what responsibility looks like.
Okay, so the whole idea of equality basically destroys the capacity for us to produce a sequence of institutions that support people of different abilities to handle the maximum responsibility they can, but no more than we can. Does that make sense? Luke, I'm trying to make sure I got through because I might have
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can't build a muscle without something to push against.
right. So I express this as we have ternary, a trifunctional civilization. We have at least 3 classes of frames. We have at least 3 means of education or understanding the world, systems of thought about the world. And those 3 respond to the sphere of responsibility you have. Right? I mean, it's for myself and those people I trade with, for myself, those people I trade with, and those people I govern. Or administer is probably I prefer administer than govern. But yes. So whose fault is it that we went out? I love this answer. Whose fault is it that we went out to the world in the post-war era with democracy and Westernism as the priority over? You call it modernization and Westernization, right? So democracy and consumerism and Westernization together instead of rule of law and modernization. But why didn't we do that? And Luke said it earlier. It's because it wasn't enough to stop the communists and the other folks, right? But once the communists were largely gone in the 90s, we didn't switch from selling this political promise as a means to get to modernization and industrialization. We needed to flip the message to you only need rule of law, industrialization, and you will eventually approach Westernization to the degree that it's comfortable for your polity.
Yes.
And if you do the opposite, if you try to put democracy in place, it will fuck your polity.
Well, it even did ours. We weren't even mature enough for
Right.
it. They kept pushing the franchise down to the kids.
Right. As I said, as we are the example of, right? We're the example of extending democracy beyond the range of competency. That's when democracy should be a reward, like when democracy voting should be a reward for demonstrated competency, just for responsibility, right? I mean, that's so we're just as stupid as everybody else. Is that what we just came to?
Right. Yeah, we replaced a hereditary aristocracy with a meritocratic aristocracy, and then we got rid of the merit rules. So.
Well, I think the reason is that liberal democracy is the best regime for merchants, and
best regime for
merchants. And claiming that it's the best, most moral regime somehow made it an excellent justification of conquest of the world.
So what you're saying is with it's usually historians generally say Christianity was a great cover for Arianism, which is militaristic expansionism, and economic expansionism was a great reason to fund Arianism, right? Christianity and Arianism. I'm like, okay, well, that's true. So
it's more like an abuse of Arianism against interests.
no,
of
I'm not.
Arians.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't finished the arc. I'm trying to prove you're right. So the problem is that in the post-war period, when we bribed the world to join us against communism and now Islamism, right? Which is just Islamism is just the Islamists just looked at the communists and say, hey, we can do that too. So I mean, it's just the same shit, right? So the communists, we bribed everybody with economic rewards, but we both started believing our own nonsense. So we believed our own nonsense about the aristocracy of everybody, which is democracy, and we believed our own nonsense about the primacy of economics overall, right? Which is, Martin, is that what you're getting at? It's just the merchants who always overdo it. And if you look at Western Civ, every time we fail, that's what happens, right? We have such a drive for prosperity that the merchants extend the range of trade, which generates demand for the military to do its job, which brings the polity to demographic exhaustion, which is there aren't enough people to be competent to maintain this radius of political order necessary for trade, and the trade that returns to the political order. And then what happens is we've lifted everybody. What's it called? The Peter principle, when you make everybody equally incompetent.
Yeah.
Somebody look that up for me.
Yes.
Where everybody raises to the level of their own incompetence. And so what happens is the consequence of this wealth, which is where we are today, is that everybody rises to the level of their own competence. Add credentialism to it instead of demonstrated competency, and now you've entrenched incompetency.
Well, my point was rather that liberal democracy allows merchants to take over every institution, and of course they want to do it throughout the whole world. So
Right,
they would
so-
want to impose liberal democracy on the whole world.
So what you're saying is, in the absence of rule of law, of natural law, which is what we do, in other words, if you have morality, right, that's one thing. We would take morality and take it to rule of law of natural law, which would prevent what Martin's talking about, which is the capture of the institutions by economics. But if in the post-war world, as we've said, economics is the substitute for morality, which is essentially what we're saying. Economics is the new test of whether we're doing moral things because it's empirical. Then that becomes the justification for the previous sequence of captures of the institution by wealth generation. Did I make my Martin? I'm trying to see if I made my point there. I went too fast. Okay.
Well, it's easy to spread through consumerism. It's a hyper gifting of redistribution to everybody. Economics with merchant rule is a redistribution, a hyper consumption and redistribution of all capital.
So what do you have to believe in order to in other words, what is the premise all those falsehoods are based on? Equality, right?
And freedom from limits, right? That natural law asserts nature's rules on our interactions,
Yes.
right? So when you include natural law in modernization, what you are is it limits your people's ability to modernize to that which you can integrate into your group strategy.
Yeah.
Without natural law, you're not, that limit of integration no longer exists. So you're not integrating, and what it does is modernization then gets used to exploit the extraction of your group's intergenerational wealth.
Yes. Yes.
We've complicated things, so it's easier for people to lie. Meaning, we used to trade people. We had a slave trade that was more honest than the slaves that exist today. Your iPhone was made by a slave. We just bought them where they are and said, we're not going to take them. You make the stuff over there. We'll take the stuff. That's not better. It's not better for anybody. We've raised economic success and the floor for convenience beyond people's ability to earn those things.
Right, so we've increased the friction of the ability to gain the responsibility we're actually asking of everybody, and we're assuming everybody can have.
Oh, people go, oh, well, when you give people in China $2 a day, right, that's more than they would make anyway. Yeah, but they'd be earning their status among their own people, doing things that are social and raising their own culture up. But instead, you've siphoned them off into an economic market
Okay, so
and said, you pay us instead.
You're saying it's an absence, which is what we do, right? An absence of full accounting.
A terrible one.
It's accounting for the seen, but not the unseen.
Right. You've converted their community into an economic zone.
Mhm.
Which is warfare.
Yes. And parasitism.
That's right.
I'm always cautious of analogies, like calling it slavery. It's more like it's baiting into hazard.
Well, I would say that people choose slavery more often than not to give everyone the out and the frame. Like most people want servitude, that the
They choose
accountability doesn't go beyond their.
They choose serfdom whenever possible.
Yeah, servitude. Sure.
Which
any self-determined.
A slavery, I don't. But I'll take the words. They will turn serfdom, which is I will do for this in exchange for something, for my ability to produce consumption.
It's my self-determined bias, right?
Mhm.
Servitude feels like slavery to me. Being in a cage is worse than someone killing me.
Yeah. We're all for, I mean, I don't know how disagreeable. I mean, Brandon and I are pretty disagreeable. I don't know about Martin. You're not you're not disagreeable. What's your disagreeability? Agreeableness.
Well, it came out pretty low, but you have to disambiguate it into politeness and what's the other one?
Yeah.
Compassion. Politeness and compassion are
Conformity.
Yeah, there's
can't remember.
probably more than just the two. They break them up into. There's probably like 3 or 4
Well,
dimensions.
it goes down from there, but the sex difference is really politeness, which is male versus
Compassion.
I don't know what it is the other one. Okay, so shit, I forgot the question I asked you, Martin.
Disagreeability. You asked them how
So
much.
you have low. You don't have high agreeableness. You have relatively low agreeableness, right?
I don't agree to falsehoods.
Yes, same here. So I know Brandon and I are in the same place. Luke, I don't know about you. Have you taken a test or you just found out your agreeableness or not?
I took it years ago. I don't remember what it is.
No. What's your tolerance for people saying things that are false?
Depends on the person.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with children, then my tolerance is very high.
Yes. Well,
If I'm dealing with adults, then my tolerance is very low.
very low. Yeah, I'm probably the same.
But I see most of the world as children. So
Okay,
We're running out of
now you've answered the question indirectly.
Right.
We found out the answer. It's low, right? So Jacob, do you know where you are on the scale?
Not exactly where I'd be situated, but I kind of take the same position as Luke there, which means I do see a decent portion of my peers as children.
Yeah. Okay. So you have low agreeableness. So we all share this low agreeableness thing, right? Which is the personality trait that puts truth before face in your face, right? And that's what we should.
back to the point where we were just discussing, though, cultures serve to lift people out of that desire for serfdom, right? That's why status rewards are part of every cultural system, every group status, right? So by introducing this unfettered, by law, by natural law, this unfettered modernization, we're like you said, baiting them into hazard away from those cultural pressures that would push them out of the choice of serfdom,
Right.
by offering them this economic path rather than the social path.
Right.
Within
We're promising them the agency that their culture won't give them, even given the same technology. It's not going to make your people different. It's not going to make the outputs the same as ours. That's not a thing.
So the net is that if I can bring the story full around, then what we're saying is that if you raise people up out of one status, in other words, how much capacity they have for increasing the radius of their effect, right? How far away they can act. If you increase people's class standing effectively, there's a maximum rate you can do that. Well, before where people are able to adapt to their station without increasing error. Now, the West, we did over, well, I mean, I would argue we did it over 5,000 years, but the big change we've had since 1200. So, and the rapid change has happened since 1500, and the super rapid change happened since 1830. Right. And now we're in a place where what the fuck is going on? Because it's, this next stage we're sort of approaching here is going to be absolute madness. So what's happened is that even though we have had the longest time to adapt and have most normalized, let's call it classical liberalism, despite that before Martin interjects here and says, well, that's gone, which he's right. But until recently, we had some classical liberalism. Is that we've asked everybody else on the planet to do it in, like the Chinese did it in 20 years, right? Some other, I mean, we've asked everybody to do what guarantees their failure. We still failed, right?
Looking like it.
Right. But we've guaranteed everyone else's failure by telling them the wrong thing.
Yes.
Which is why I go back to the White House, the press room at the White House needs our posters, right, to explain what the hell's going on, so you understand the world from each state. But we could just take Martin and I play back and forth on this. Is that you could take my most optimistic presumption and Martin's most pessimistic presumption. I'm teasing you, buddy. He says, no, you're not teasing me. You're just telling the truth. I mean,
Great, that's just accurate.
My most optimum position, which is we felt like we were doing the right thing all along, right? Our high-minded people. What is that? What did he say? What's his name? Came back from negotiating the settlement of World War II, and he says, I was behind. World War One. He's like, and the British guy says, I'm seated between Jesus which is an American, and Napoleon, right, which is like the opposite end of the spectrum, both of which have different perceptions of human nature, and we're too foolishly optimistic, right, because we're American. So, which is why the Russians think we're naive idiots, right? Is because we're so optimistic, but there's a value to our optimism, just like there's a value to their pessimism. But our optimism's what got us, right? And our tolerance is what got us in the post-war period. But I mean, if we fucking crashed because we introduced too many people into the polity too fast, in other words, too many people into voting too fast, then what have we done to the rest of the world we've told to get on democracy? People like ask them to put a political gun to their heads.
Well, then just to magnify the problem for us, we also insured it everywhere.
Oh God, did you have to? Yeah, that hit me the same way, Brandon. That hurt, Luke. Not only are we telling you to do the wrong thing, but we're going to ensure that you do the wrong thing. Ow.
And our foreign policy model still says we got to pay for all of it, right? I mean, we're gonna pay. We're gonna foot the bill for the failure we introduced everywhere. So we're killing their cultures and destroying our own economic position.
I have to recover from that, Luke. Right, it's going to take me a minute my emotions to settle down. I don't have any of those nice drugs like Xanax or whatever the other ones are, but I might need one if I was predisposed. I don't know those drugs. What kind of, the only one I know is Xanax. For getting yourself under control. You don't know either because you're not fucked up enough, you know. We need some fucked up people and that we can call.
I would suggest it's more that we're comfortable with our fucked upness
Oh,
rather than seeking escape from it.
That's ownership.
Right. I make no claim to not have those kind of problems. I just don't seek escape from them.
it's like not to get too distracted from it, but you know, uh, it's actually a bit of a pain in the ass to be on the spectrum, right? I mean, at least it's a pain in the ass, right? I mean, it's really hard when you're young. And when you're older, it turns into an incredible superpower, really. But when you're young, it's a real pain in the ass. And you know, you look at the number of what's happening in the autistic community in the medical research community about the spectrum now. It's like, why wasn't this shit around when I was a kid? So that I could have just said, oh, this is just compartmentalization, it's normal. But you know, pain in the ass. Well, I have my own fucked up in this. I view it as a superpower, except when I'm trying to, you know, there's certain parts of life that are rather difficult, like getting teased like by you guys endlessly. Anyway, so we've done a pretty good job of explaining the failure of why civilizations, including ours, have failed right now, haven't we? It's basically a problem of the resource capacity of demographics versus the rate of previous institutional structure, the rate of adaptation that's possible for those people, and us selling the wrong part of the package, right? The modernity westernization in order to prevent the rise of communism.
Did we sell the wrong part, or did we purposely sell them the fun part?
I think we were trying to solve the geostrategic issue, which was we have to direct all these. In other words, we don't say it this way. It's the way I've tried to explain it this way: is the Americans don't understood that the age of empires was what created the problem of the world wars. So we try to direct people instead of externally to internally to development on one hand and human rights on the other, and respect, and to do that within respect for borders. That was basically the strategy, right? And so, okay, that's our strategy. Let's not have another fucking world war because this sucks dick, right? I mean, it's not complicated.
How do we get to open borders from that?
Well,
How do we get to open
don't
borders?
don't jump ahead. Don't jump ahead.
I can't help it.
So it's really easy to throw me off. I don't have real coffee anymore. I've been on decaf for a month now, and you're like throwing me a shiny object, and I'm like a crow, and I'm gonna go play with this shiny fucking object.
It's like one of those laser pointers with a cat.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely unfair.
And the abuse of human rights turned out to be just an excuse not to respect other countries' borders.
Well, again, you'll go the negative way. I'm going to start from the way I think about it as a Christian Anglo-Saxon, Germanic European is. We thought we looked at the world, and you could, because this wasn't like secret. I mean, it was open discussion everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. It was thoroughly understood. Is that what we're trying to do? Is empires are a problem. We don't need empires anymore if we have free trade. So let's create a world where we create free trade, which means you don't need empires in order to industrialize or modernize, right? Right. Now, the problem is if you have modernization under authoritarianism, this just restores the problem of empires. So they wanted modernization and democracy to prevent the restoration of empire. So the package was the package we put together. It's not, this is why I say the package is completely logical. Why this isn't like the Declaration of Independence or like, it isn't like just engraved in stone is what we're doing somewhere so that everybody gets it and that we always tie back to it. It's because we're primarily still Christian evangelical in our minds in America, and so we try to pitch everything morally instead of operationally, which is the problem I've repeated with conservatism and why I got on this goddamn mission statement of mine, which is how do we make what we do possible in rational adult language instead of this pseudo moral sophistry Christian philosophical bullshit we tend to throw at each other all the time as if it's high fucking mindedness, a new secular version of pulpitism. Anyway, so sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that quite much of a rant there, but anyway, so what we're trying to do is pretty practical. So, and in a large part, it worked for most of the world. We did drag the world out of poverty, right? The problem is it's not a sustainable strategy.
We also didn't do it with democracy. We did it with medicine and economics. It wasn't giving them the vote that dragged them out of their destitution.
Right. What we needed was rule of law, right? That's what they didn't need.
You're going off on the good intentions of the Christian collective over here. And what does the law say about intentions?
Yeah. Regardless of your intentions, if you caused harm, you did, and you're responsible. So I'm going to go back to switching. All right. So I'm going to try to make an excuse for the West. Right. So because I'm the nice guy in the group, apparently. Oh, Jake, you're pretty much a nice guy, right?
I'd say I'm polite, probably not nice.
With bait, you took it. Luke's nice, but it comes with barbs. Dude, you're not going to respond?
Painfully nice.
You're painful. So what happened, of course, in 92 is we had an ejaculation of joy because we perceived we win, but we didn't switch over to actually, now that this is done, the real answer is we need to shut down. And so in other words, we believed our own bullshit that we were selling to the world, and we did it at home too. And in 92, when this all ended, we didn't switch to, okay, now that this bullshit is over, here's the truth of what we're doing, and here's what we're trying to accomplish. And so then we took a sort of 10-year vacation, or under Clinton and then Obama, of total fucking irresponsibility. And then we failed at the problem of Islam because it's an unsolvable problem, because it's always been an unsolvable problem. And so, we're in this position where now what's happened is those empires have said, you know what, we can still get away with empire. Right? Because we sold democracy, and what they countered with is democracy is decadence. So by not switching from democracy to rule of law, we gave them the card they needed to destroy us, which is democracy is decadence, which is right. Democracy does lead to decadence, just like communism leads to decadence. Luke?
Right. We sure showed them. we celebrate the defeat of communism every time communism kills a country. And that makes no sense. It's like celebrating the cure for cancer every time a cancer patient dies. Absurd.
Well,
imagine celebrating end of communism when you didn't even get rid of it from your own government.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like a cancer patient celebrating because a cancer patient died, thinking that they beat cancer. It's like, no. That should incentivize you to go after it harder, not stop going after it.
Yeah, they're celebrating at the same time while you have cancer.
Right, yeah. It's like
yeah, no, but so what I want to explain, what I've been trying to do with this arc that we've been on, right? And it's all your fault, Luke. You're the one who brought it up.
I tried.
What?
I'm baiting you into hazard.
Yeah, exactly. So this long arc is that it was a pretty good set of intentions. but it's also backed by our folly, right? We have a ridiculous Christian optimism, and we fail to as a people, we tend to state things in moral terms instead of scientific terms or practical terms. And if you state it in practical terms, it's really easy to explain what wrong. Don't give people political power unless they have demonstrated the responsibility to wield it in the organization of self-determination with family and financial independence, the ability to run a business, or the ability to run an industry, or the ability to run a territory. If you can't demonstrate you're competent in that, then why do you have, in other words, if you have rule of law, you have defense against evil. That's great. But why should you have offense, in other words, toward the hypothetical good, if you can't demonstrate the competency to do so? So our advocacy of democracy instead of rule of law is a problem. And our failure, which is our project, our failure to codify natural law sufficiently so that it was a science, so that we could argue it rationally, was one of the causes of the problem. So we've given people the ability now to argue all this science. Communism doesn't work, right? Does Islamism work? Islamism works as a way of guard for 85 average IQ, 84 average IQ populations to defend against decadence. Okay, that's great. Now add a rule of law to it and non-aggression. In other words, contain Islam, take away the war part of Islam, right? Whose fault is it Islamic countries are at war all the time? Well, we're the ones that draw the fucking stupid borders instead of giving them ethno states. It's our fault. So, in an effort to do good, we have done good by modernization. We've done disaster by attempting westernization. And by telling that story inversely, in other words, promoting democracy instead of rule of law, and democracy and the end of empires in favor of nation states. If we'd just gone out with that, then we wouldn't have had to lie to ourselves. So we started believing our own lies. And we believed our own lies, we acted on our own lies, and we created the hole in our culture, decadence, right? That made everybody turn against the entire program that we've been trying to put in place. Now, what our position is, we can fix the decadence, right? I don't know about you, Luke. You might be too far gone for the rest of us.
I am out of control.
Oh, Jesus, you're so and so we're we've got this decadence. We can control this decadence. The worst thing, even in the worst case scenario, we can switch to rule of law is what matters. And yes, we fucked up with this decadence shit, and here's how you can fix it. Right? So we can tell other people how to fix it. So my view is the story, I mean, I suppose I could take this arc we've put down as a rather, in its comedic interludes, right, that we've had over the past, I don't know, hour or so. We could take that and we could condense it into a paper and say this is the real problem the world faces, is that we need to, we would need to switch both for ourselves and for others back to the truth instead of this optimistic nonsense that was a rational solution to the ending of empires and the imperial wars, and instead replacing them with sovereignty, reciprocity, truth, duty, whatever, that leads to small ethnocentric nation states with the minimum internal conflict and the maximum capacity for the production of commons.
Which makes a fantastic foundation for integration of modernity.
Yes.
It's necessary. It's the technology that we have missed.
Yes. So if you were to if we were to give this sort of talk to a bunch of people, would they understand it?
How are you going to frame it? So I tell them we have
I don't know. I
to,
think we framed it pretty accessibly just now.
Yeah. we have to start here in America in order to help other people. We have to wage war on the people who are waging it against us. Woke is
Do
just
we?
a religion of hate.
I brought that back to you and I said, well, I asked this question earlier. I'd rather go to the people who agree with us that the Western liberalism, not classical liberalism, but liberalism, is devolutionary, disgusting, immoral, whatever, right? And I'd rather tell them it's because the primacy of family is the first institution of social, political, economic order.
Mhm.
It's the first system production. Right? Generations of the first production. Children are the first generation, first organization of production. So I mean, I'd rather go to them and them say, "Huh, okay, I'm not actually advocating this. I'm running my test on you guys." Right? So it's like I'd rather talk to people who agree with the decadence of the West, but still want the order we have. Well, they want things to work,
Mhm.
right? Right? Like it's very hard for us because we don't see them. It's very difficult to imagine just how poor Russians are outside of Moscow, St. Petersburg assets, especially as you move eastward. This is very, I mean, these people with, absurd percent of the population still has outhouses.
Mhm.
So, they live on, pennies, and nearly half of the population is now on pensions. Is it third or half? Lost the number in my head right now. And that's like $200 a month at most. So, excuse me, that's like $80 a month at most. So, I mean, for $20 to some of these people is a phenomenal amount of money. It's like a week's salary would be to you and me. Probably more than that because it's marginal indifference in purchasing power. So if we went out and said, "Here's the problem, and here's how you can solve it," and we're wrong too, I think that's a great way to back propagate into us the discussion. And you could say, "Curt, why can't we just have this discussion with our own people?" I don't know, but I can tell you that there's a difference in legitimacy with external groups versus internal groups.
We're going to have a message for every group. What I'm saying is, in order to have the agency to help other countries, you have to have your own country in order.
Yes. Okay.
They're saying clean your room.
I'm saying clean your room. Thanks, Martin.
My house is not quite the frat party, but it's the kids have been home for the weekend. You have this scale of mess. That's where mine is.
Mhm.
I don't have a wife or a mom anymore, or a housekeeper.
The best way to go about it over here is to show people that the rule of law still works. Meaning you have to use the
It does
courts.
work here.
Well, I don't see doctors mutilating children being sentenced.
Oh no, but this is the problem, right? So thank you for bringing up this issue.
You got it.
So the problem with our system is the difference between the requirement for commonality and concurrency. Does that make sense? Our system's empirical. This is an issue. This is the complaint about our system, is that everything takes a lot of debate, and the reality is, until it makes into the court, it doesn't get settled. And the court doesn't want to settle things that it thinks the legislature should settle. And the legislature doesn't want to settle things that makes them think they could get unelected.
So nothing gets settled.
So nothing gets settled in timely fashion. It does get settled. It just gets settled extremely long-term and painfully. So one of the things that we bring to the table with our extraordinarily granular explanation of law is that you might want to change your sex, but anybody who helps you with that, right, is putting themselves in a position where it's a non-unrestitutable, right? It's unrestitutable action, so it's illegal. And so it's a pursuit of a preference that's unrestitutable. So essentially, all we would have to do is make these people liable, everyone in the chain liable, for the dissatisfaction of this. Now, I don't want to investigate this problem. All right. So in other words, there's things that I would rather not investigate. I don't know the science on gender dysphoria. Other than I know why it exists, when it exists, and in other words, I know what causes it, when it exists, and how it ameliorates over time. Right? I know why our current condition is exacerbating it. Although there's a presumption in the community, the scientific community, that there are causes other than social. In other words, there must be something biological going on for this to happen.
I'm convinced that mutilating body is absolutely the wrong solution.
Well, we're trying to answer. The question that Brandon brought up is what I'm trying to answer is the problem with a post hoc legal system, right, which is what we have, is that it doesn't have a means of reacting to things that aren't in the code quickly. In other words, it requires a pretty much empirical result in order to change legislation. And that means it's got to work its way through the market of success and failure. So we allow a lot of harms before we outlaw something. Now we're saying that we can increase the precision of measurements so that we know this, right? And this mutilation shouldn't happen. People who have this problem, their gender dysphoria is a psychological problem, whatever. Is homosexuality a psychological problem? Doesn't appear to be. It appears to be an in utero developmental issue. So gender dysphoria, that looks like what it is. What is causing it? We don't know exactly. We just know that it's getting worse. So what we have in this country is we don't have the ability to say we're gonna put a hold on this until we have some science on it. In other words, we don't have that ability to do so because there's nowhere to do it. The government won't do it because it won't constrain irresponsibility and self-satisfaction hedonism, or it's gone left. The court might do it, right, if we gave the court a venue for doing it. In other words, permission to do it. Like for right now, if you pass a law, the court can intercede and say we have to stop this law. But if there's a behavior in the polity, the court there's no vehicle for using the court to intercede until this is a settled. In other words, there's no way the court can capture something and send it to the legislature, or capture something to itself and say, we don't know, but this is causing harms. And this is what other countries can do, right? Other countries that aren't governed by commonality and concurrency, they can act preemptively on a harm, which puts them at risk of reacting preemptively on a bad, right? They can also do bads. So the problem is defining what can you preemptively act on.
Anything that's irreciprocal.
Well, I mean, we have to give them that tool. They don't have it.
It's 5 criteria. Send it in an email.
No, all right. So, yeah, a person who's experiencing gender dysphoria, who wants this thing, we're telling them that no one can help you with that physically, only psychologically, until you're at the age of full maturity, so where your brain is finished forming, and then you can make that decision. Right? I mean, I guess it's okay if you want to dress up, right? Whatever. But the idea that we should be using chemicals to alter your biochemistry, that looks like an issue to me.
At that point, I would want total dissociation. I don't want that person anywhere near me.
There you go. So now you've gone from this one question to the next, which is, we lost. Is that okay? It may not be illegal, but it may be dissociative. In other words, why do we say, why is this false? Animals don't have rights. What we do is we say we grant animals the protections as if they have rights, right? And the reason is why? Because I don't want that fucking person around me.
Yes. Well, that's part of the hazard. Imagine
Right.
being
Why do we?
mutilated and then being then you're unacceptable to the rest of society, the rest of sane society. You can be around people who are dysfunctional like you. Try to make a functional group out of that.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with pedophiles. Now,
Correct.
we know pedophilia isn't curable. It's only exterminable. So, I was trying to get a laugh out of that one.
I thought it was clever.
Okay. Okay. So the problem with that is, why don't we have the right of disassociation from pedophiles? Right?
Because we are ruled by pedophiles.
Well, okay, that's probably true, because theoretically all women are pedophilic, right? I mean, it's just a problem, and women make the marginal difference. So this is and of course, this is my problem: is that, do we have a voting problem? Do we have a problem in America? No, we have a.
I mean, it's all that's all raising children to the level of peerage. All that.
Yes.
They are not peers. You are to steward their innocence.
Yep.
Like it's your job, or will harm you.
Right. Well, of course, they don't want responsibility of raising them. Right?
But I think that's part of the problem is the harm they're doing hasn't been decided yet, but our ability to respond to that harm has been decided. We can't tar and feather the doctors.
Right.
And if you're engaged in an undecided activity, you shouldn't have the protections.
You know, I brought up pedophilia, Jacob, and you ran away. Is your reaction that severe that it brought you to? You had to get you. It made you nauseous.
Thought I'd get teased in some way for grabbing another coffee.
Of course. Who are you hanging out with?
We are afforded the opportunity to disassociate with at least convicted pedophiles, right? They do have sex offender lists and stuff published, and their locations have to be made public record. So
Right, but why have we lost the right of disassociation, exclusion? We need the right of exclusion to be able to get now. And who is stopping us from hanging pedophiles?
The fear of being punished for doing it, that's what's stopping anybody.
Well, why are we not able to hang them?
Because you'll be punished in return.
No, I mean, why in the politically?
Oh, ask the question again.
Why is the law allowing pedophiles to stay free? Why is the law letting serial criminals stay free when it looks like most crimes by a small number of criminals?
Yeah, well, the law isn't. People are doing that against the law.
Right. So why are the people letting this happen?
Because dysfunctions are Democrat constituents.
Yes.
Not that Republicans are a whole lot better.
Okay, now I was on an arc. Started out with Brandon saying,
Well, do you want to go with harming doctors for harming kids, gender dysphoria, pedophilia? Which arc did you want to complete?
well, the problem, the root of the problem is really simple. It's the primacy of the family over the individual. And so what these people are doing is they're creating hazards for the family. A family is a very expensive thing. Why do you think population sizes are decreasing?
I mean, it's your basic,
Well,
it's also your baser political, it's the starter political unit. So undermining it is to undermine politics itself, which is to undermine the organization of the humans that you live among. So anyone who's undermining the family is a high criminal, as far as I can tell. Doesn't matter whether you're doing it because you want to predate on children medically or sexually. Doesn't matter if it's because you want to raise everyone to the same level of dysfunction. Doesn't matter if you just want to practice hateful religions like woke and communism and so on. You are a criminal.
Right. So we can't. We have been so indoctrinated into individualism, which is not the purpose of Western structure. It's individual responsibility in defense of law, but feminism in most things and communism and everything else, right? And so we have this tiered function of the individual is we want to create the greatest freedom to produce competent families and competent industries and beneficial commons. It's not for the individual himself. Do it make sense?
Yeah. What?
All right. It's not for, we're not trying to make you happy. We're trying to make it so that you can fulfill the maximum potential in the product of your actions, which is family, industry, society, and polity. That's what the purpose is making you useful. It's not making you fucking happy, right? And so that has become the problem.
We're
Right.
in the conundrum of having to make people who aren't useful, and them feeling like that is oppression.
Right. Well, I mean, because if you're not useful, you're a parasite. So it's just harm reduction. It's like, why do we educate people? Why? Because they're a fucking pain in the ass if you don't. You know, they're a drain on the. So why do we create responsible people? Because they're a drain on responsible people if we don't. Why do we well?
In the present day, education makes people more of pain in the ass.
Yes. Can't figure out how to turn that around on you, man. I was trying to think of something, but I couldn't do it. All right.
Yeah, we created a system that produces the greatest opportunity for the individual expression of responsibility, and then we removed the demand for responsibility from that system.
Yes. When you say it like that, it makes us feel pretty stupid, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're dumb. We're idiots. That's why I tried a few days ago. I don't know if you guys saw this. I tried to reframe the whole concept of classical liberalism into responsibilism.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's what we were actually selling.
Yes.
That's what we were actually offering, but we made the mistake of calling it liberalism, of the removal of limits, when what we're trying to do is maximize the opportunity for individual responsibility.
Right.
It meant we weren't going to hinder each other from being self-determined. The
Right.
liberalness was in the
Isn't
ability
that-
for self-determination. Go ahead.
Isn't that what isn't that the operational definition of aristocratic egalitarianism?
Yes.
Problem.
Right?
But we lay out the criteria for self-determined, right? By self-determined means.
How can you be self-determined unless you're fucking responsible?
That's it.
And so Western civilization is a bunch of us who are responsible, trying to get other people to fucking be responsible.
Right.
Well, despite the fact that the flip side of it is to be responsible means you can't have any authority, you can only have decidability. So we can go to a leader and say, can you resolve this dispute? But we can't go to the leader and say, you must take responsibility for us and tell us what to do. Because then you're not being responsible.
As far as I know, the system devised by founding fathers wasn't even called liberalism for at least a century after. It was only called liberalism. It only became called liberalism retrospectively.
Yes, that's correct.
Liberalism was French as a reaction to
those fucking French.
Well, I mean, it was a positive response to both French Revolution and Napoleon.
Well, it's because the French Revolution was a restoration of Catholic authoritarianism in secular form. I mean, that's the whole French thing, right? I mean, they still desperately want to believe they can be Rome because they desperately believe they're more virtuous. And yet they get everything wrong, which is fascinating. Like, I mean, we get stuff wrong, but they get everything. A bad idea can be made. The French will come up with it. So you're right, liberal. What was it? They didn't refer to it as, they didn't give a name to it at all, did they?
Not really, no.
No, they had no name for it. It was just the way
you didn't used to need a name for adulthood.
It was normal. That was called normal back then.
he didn't need to have a name for adult.
It was not normal. They didn't have a king. That was persevered.
They tried to have a king. They did. They really wanted. They wanted Washington to be king. He just wouldn't do it.
They wanted to stay actually under the crown. They just wanted everything else about their government to be separate from British.
Say that again?
They wanted to stay under British crown, but the rest of their government was supposed to be separate. The king didn't went along with this, so they.
Which was dumb, right?
Yeah.
What a dummy.
But they were trying to maximize the opportunity for responsibility, for the expression of responsibility. I mean, that's.
So how did you call it? Responsibilitarianism or something?
Oh, just responsibilism instead of liberalism.
Responsibilism. We got to run with that, dude.
I call it classic responsibilism just to fit that classical liberalism point, because.
Yeah, so the problem is that the liberalism it contains the aristocratic egalitarian presumption that we want more of you, right? So you're saying it with classical responsibilism is a way of making that presumption included. We could always just repeat the sequence over and over again until people got it, right? So I have a mission to sell this now. So
the way I summarize it was classical liberalism was the expression or the concept of non-intervention in adult responsibility. Right? So that's why it should have been called responsibilism from the get-go instead of liberalism.
Because that's all it is, right?
Yeah, you're not going to externally interfere in somebody else's expression of responsibility. But that inherently has the requirement of responsibility.
Right. So what I'm trying to run with it. So, well, yeah, but you're responsible for others' health and safety and happiness and security, right? No, because then I'm depriving them of their facility. They're taking on responsibility. Instead, my job is to make other people responsible.
Right.
Steward self-determination.
And self-determination is. Yeah, I don't put that in there. Why don't I do that? Because I do it as tests. I do self-determination, reciprocal assurance of maximization of self-determination by self-determined means by sovereignty, assurance of self-determination by self-determined means by tests of sovereignty demonstrated in reciprocity, display, word, and deed. But how do I fit responsibility in there? I do it as duty, by truth and duty, but it's not saying that that's truth and duty for sovereignty and responsibility, but with self-determination by self-determination is responsibility, right?
Reciprocity traps you into being responsible. You can't evade responsibility.
I'm just trying to meld I'm trying to see if we can meld responsibilism into the Western. In other words, I'm trying to see if, okay, he's right? Classical responsibilism is a better term. how do I integrate that into because everything I do is I say is a test, right? It's a test that can be subject. Responsibility is an outcome, right? And so I have to figure out how to fit that in, because what I'd like to do is unify the possible responsibility with this thing, with the rest of the system we have. I'm sure I can do that if I just sit there and stare at it for a few minutes. So. I can do that. We'll see, Luke. You had a great idea this week.
Every once in a while.
It does happen. You managed to do that without, strange psychedelic substances, sitting on the side of a mountain, staring at the stars and having extraterrestrial experiences.
That was last weekend.
On Easter.
Yeah, that's how I celebrated.
You guys are a riot. Well, we can integrate that. We finished that arc. The arc is, well, I mean, what we did was with good intention. It's explicable. The problem is we believed our own stupid shit, and because we believed our own stupid shit, we didn't redirect from the evangelical to the practical at the end in the 90s. And instead, we had a little frat party for 20 years, which basically screwed us over.
When I have to have this same civilization level conversation with each of my kids at some point, right? If you help the butterfly get out of the chrysalis, you kill the butterfly.
Yes.
People don't understand how that scales.
Yes. That's really good. Okay. I just want to make sure we finish that arc. I think we have 3 or 4 in there, so we had 3 in there. Okay. Okay, so now that my brain is like all wound up on something, anybody got any observations of what's going on? Any new insights in the Trump thing, the Trump indictment, whatever?
I was reading he's made something like $13 million off of it so far.
Yeah. How successful are we? Is the group being at demonstrating how successful Soros has been at undermining rule of law simply by getting these DAs elected?
Are you asking if that's like common knowledge?
Right? Is that getting out there?
It's been
I think,
common.
I think the only people recognizing it are the people that were already recognizing it. So.
All right.
And then there's people who call it conspiracy theory, no matter how obvious it is.
And anti-Semitic.
He says he's going to do it. He says
Right.
why he's
Well,
going to
it
do
is.
it. He said why he's doing it. He's lying, but he says why he's doing it. It's not gonna. Unfortunately, I guess it's his son is going to continue this bullshit. So we're going to have a problem even after the old man is gone. What's your view on the progress of the trans thing? How's that?
I'm enjoying seeing the Bud Light stock fall. That's fun to watch.
I almost can't believe, because my Uncle Richard used to be a honcho over there for a long time. Was hired by August Bush, and of course he died a few years ago. But when I know of that company, it's hard for me to imagine how that campaign got authorized, how that woman got hired. And this is what happens, right? I mean, it's like it's why families only last 3 generations, right? It's why companies only last a couple generations. Fuck. So is there any public consensus building around this transition?
They don't like it.
Dysmorphic, what?
They don't like it. The public.
Did they ever?
No. They never liked it.
And that doesn't matter.
No. It hasn't
So
so far.
the special interests win, the public doesn't win.
Well, the problem, just because of the way the attention market is set up, that it still offers disproportionate rewards to organizations jumping on board.
Right.
Because you get a ton of exposure, and you're not the only people it's costing you any status with is people that already are not buying your products.
Right.
So who cares about the negative side of all this exposure? You can do one thing, and if you're flooded all over social media for the next 3-4 weeks.
Also,
costs you next to nothing to do it.
So in other words, it's like the bad advertising is good advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, the ESG, the companies that covers, they're a cartel, right? They're their own companies. They're offering a set of conveniences to the public, and you can't escape them. They're all the big companies. There's a graphic that goes around every time Pride Month is that with all the logos done in rainbow. It's an extensive graphic.
I go back and I went to an art school, right, where it's like 4 straight guys in the fucking building, right? I mean, which was great for hunting season, I gotta tell you. So I've never had that. And one of my best friends, Kevin's gay, right? I mean, you got to put up with them trying to say something suggested to you once a year, because it's like guys hitting on girls, right? It just happens, right? So you just become numb to it. I don't care. And I have I have a sort of appreciation for certain things about that. Like, I'd rather go to a gay tailor and have him tell me which fucking tie to pick out. I mean, it's just like they're right. I mean, that's what they
saying. Aesthetics is biological.
I'm saying that they have a reason to be biological. Yeah, no, sure, aesthetics is biological.
No,
certain kinds of
playing with you.
No, I mean, and so it's like I used to use this guy at Filene's in Boston. I go in. It was the 80s, and I was pretty vain. So
the issue is the same across the boards. They don't have a culture. They have a special interest. You can't push forth a special interest as though it has cultural, aims and so on, right? Because you're just stealing from actual cultures.
Right. So my whole thing was, there's a difference between acceptance and tolerance, and promotion and public presentation, promotion, and advocacy. And this is one of those things that should be accepted and tolerated, but it shouldn't be, because it's a baiting into a hazard. Right? All right. It's also contrary to the interests of a family. Nobody wants to have to invest in children. The cost of not nobody. Very few of us are willing to invest in the high cost of children when it means that we're not going to have any grandchildren, or we're going to have other questions. So, my problem was with gay marriage, which says it's not marriage, because marriage is insurance by the community against the hazard of unsupported children, right? And so the reason for marriage to be public is so that the public agrees to ensure the sanctity of this marriage by non-interference and support of it as some means of self-defense. That's why marriage exists, right? Beside the fact that men will kill over mates far more than any other subject. So it's just a way of making the world work. Well, I mean, I have a problem with gay marriage. I don't have a great problem with the equivalent, which is the reciprocal exchange of power of attorney, right? Which is what it is, right? And community and a contract for community property. And that's what you have to have, is those two things. That's what a marriage consists of. But it's not the same thing, which is the central aspect of society, and the first unit of production of society is a family,
They ambiguated the term marriage.
really ambiguated the terms. That's my problem with it. It's like, and so I said, well, you created a problem here because it's not the same. Now, if you're a gay couple and you figure out how to get inseminated somehow or have some children, fucking more power to you. I don't care.
It's the same enough as a terrible argument. That's the one they're using
Right.
to fuck children. It's close enough.
So, in any event, I didn't care so much about, in other words, those are all solvable practical things within the existing common law without undermining the institution of marriage. Right? That's all I was trying to get at. And so, if you, I don't have any issue with that. My problem is the hedonism expressed in the community. Like if they had I don't know why we need gay pride parades and all this other shit, especially when they're degenerate. And it's the same thing with the trans community. What we're trying to do is keep sex out of the commons because it baits into a hazard. And now look what happened when we put sex into the commons. Fucking A, man. Look what we got now. 80, 70, and 50% by race, single motherhood. What does that mean? Well, that means that you don't have household formation. If you don't have household formation, everybody's basically just halved their income or their purchasing power of their income. So, I mean, it's just asking for poverty. And then that's asking for the rest of us who are responsible to pay for it. And it creates baiting into the hazard for our children, which are already too expensive because we're already supporting other people's hazards. So, so the same thing has to do with this trans thing. Now, my problem with this trans thing is I know someone personally who I worked with for years who at the age of 50s, despite that he always held his cigarette like this and his, he had three daughters, a long wife, whatever. He went out and turned his name into Catherine. Very fucking creepy. Like on the scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 9.7 creepy. All right. It was expected because that the whole gesture, he had all the fucking gestures, the verbal gestures and all the other stuff down, the speech pattern and everything. So it's like, you're married with 3 kids. I thought you were gay. Okay, well, fine, whatever works for you. So he goes up and get a sex change operation in his 50s or 60s, whatever the hell he was, right? When you have fuck you money, you don't care, right? Just right. But I can't deal with the guy afterwards, right? Because it's too disgusting for my disgust response. Other people could tolerate it, I couldn't, right? So, but my problem with that is baiting people into the hazard. Now, if you're 60, 50, that's great. But if you're a kid and you're going through a phase of gender dysphoria, which will normally work itself out, right, by your 20s, then we should not have this happen until you're the age of sufficient cognitive development to do that. Like, it's like these kids want to get married at 16, 17. I have no problem with that if the two people want to get married and have kids at 16, 17, if both the parents are going to be around and providing the support structure. I might even argue in favor of that. Right? Because that's like, now you've got 2 kids and you've got this enormous family to help distribute the power of the kids while they mature, and you're more likely to get responsible kids out of that if there's all that support. But that's different from saying I'm going to go mutilate my body and unrecoverably. So this whole baiting into hazard thing is it's the primary thing mixing from our Constitution, right? Our law. A prohibition on baiting into hazard. Because the purpose of truth is to bait into hazard. In other words, to stop baiting into hazard. Most of the stuff we're worried about is hazarding. I'm testing you. I'm testing that if that works.
Yeah, via false promise that you can escape the responsibility of inclusion.
Right. So
we've got to a point now where the law itself is being used to bait into hazard. we had norms that prevented those things, and laws used to undermine those norms.
Oh my God, that was
like
how many times are you going to be upsetting today?
Till it sticks.
Right.
Chico, how come you don't pick on anybody here?
No, I'm
Reciprocity.
sure I'll get the confidence to do that eventually.
You make it one of the other three guys instead of me. I realize I provide the most material, but he's going to see drinks the coffee so he can mask the smile. I got you, Doolittle. I got you. All right. So, so we completed that arc of the problem of, I mean, I don't really care. I care about, it's like the institution of the family is the primacy, right? That's the problem. We're trying to keep, that's your first demonstration of self-support is your first demonstration, right? But the family is your first contribution. Right? Is that the right way to disambiguate it?
Yeah. Self-defense. Self-defense, self-support.
Right. No, when you're able to self-support yourself, self-defend, self-support yourself, now you're saying I'm not a harm on the community, but you're not saying I'm contributing. But the minute you produce intergenerations, now you're contributing to the polity. So I'm like, okay, well, if you generate a stable family, then that's great. But if you're not doing that, then you're just imposing costs on the rest of us. So my problem with this, the whole LBG, it's not about whether your sexual preferences, it's whether you're imposing a cost on the family formation by or improving or contributing to abating into hazard that we might have people that won't be successful. And this has to do with promiscuity as well as LBT. These are all sex dysfunctions, right? Promiscuity through sexual dysphoria. Now, these are all sexual dysfunctions. What?
I have a simple solution. If you swear loyalty to some flag, you have to be first into your own borders.
How come you guys understand him and I don't? What he's saying? Is it why I'm old? What did you? Can you repeat that, Martin?
If you swear loyalty to some flag, you need to be first into your own borders.
Oh, I see. True. So the net result is that if there's something wrong with you, it can be, which is what's bad. We're wrong with you in the sense that are you going to contribute to the intergenerational production of the policy by the primacy of the family? Now we can say, okay, well, the family's primal, not prime, not the individual. The individual's variation can be tolerated and accepted, but it can't be promoted. It's only the family that's to be promoted. Right? I mean, that seems like the logical demarcation. But I mean, I don't want to hurt. I mean, I don't want to disenfranchise people who are born with whatever. I mean, I don't see any logic or benefit to that. What I see is organizing for the benefit of your people like you against the institution of the family as the primary purpose of policy. Okay. And then what was the next thing? Now, as for the trans movement, it's one thing if you want to behave differently. It's another if you produce an irreversible or you require others to assist you to do it. Does that make sense? Because you shouldn't be allowed to help someone be dysfunctional, and you shouldn't be allowed to. If you help someone to be dysfunctional, you should be accountable. Well, so, you know, the first 3 times somebody gets sued for irreversible gender manipulation, and it costs, you know, it's going to cost you $10 million, right? For every one of those, you'll get that person gets through, or people are going to stop doing it.
We're going to run out of money.
I think that also solves the drug problem.
Solves
drug problem. I mean, you can legalize them all, but if anyone comes to harm or to addiction from consuming them, you are liable.
Mm-hmm. So I want to just to repeat. So my view is that the baiting into the hazard is the primary hole in the Constitution, and our law did not account for this. It did in certain ways. The word hazard comes from hazarding, which comes from playing a game of dice. All right, so it was a law against dice playing because it's creating a hazard. So we've had some prohibitions on hazarding. The ones we tolerate are some gambling, and we tolerate some drug abuse, right? Alcohol abuse. The question is why? Why do we tolerate some hazards? So right now we've been tolerating gambling. We've been tolerating alcohol, whereas previously we've outlawed them. We've been tolerating promiscuity. We've been tolerating infidelity with divorce, promiscuity, infidelity. We've been tolerating bodily transformation, manipulation, right? And we've been tolerating lionization of sexual promiscuity or sexuality in the LGBTQ, whatever communities.
Rainbow circus.
Huh?
Rainbow circus.
So we've been taught. So the problem is each of these things produces externalities. Here's the real. So the problem is, did prohibition work? Yeah, it was incredibly successful. Why didn't they want prohibition to continue? Because of basically what we would call today's problem of gangs. Well, we've licensed some drugs, but not others, and what's happening? We're going through the same thing with the drug phase, right? We're gonna license drugs. Why? Because we don't want to prosecute it.
The problem is universalism. That some can afford to enjoy all these vices while still functioning, others can't.
Yes.
Why do we need to have the same limitations for everyone?
We don't. We have to have the same limitations for the consequences caused by the inability to handle these things. Great. Now we've got the problem of baiting people into hazard. So now you're saying you're taking someone who has limited agency and you're baiting them into the hazard with drugs, and now we get an addict.
Our marketing prohibits all that. The way we handle economics and marketing, we're not going to be able to market drugs to children or to people who are incapable as enhancements in their life. They advertise drugs on television all the time, and then they give you the laundry list of side effects and then tell you to ask your doctor about it.
Right, and that used to be prohibited.
Correct.
Selling toys on Saturday afternoon cartoons used to be prohibited.
Correct.
Selling
children,
advertising your law firm, specializing in things like ambulance chasing, used to be prohibited.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we licensing all these baitings into hazard?
Because we are ruled by merchants.
Because we are
ruled by
merchants.
Correct.
They're selling your children.
And now is ruled by merchants. In other words, I think this is what they call capitalism, right? So to me, capitalism was just the consequence of rule of law.
But to me, capitalism is a straw man that Marx invented.
Correct. But what we mean is that the problem we have is that we are not, as Martin brought up earlier, we aren't limiting commercialism to rule of law. And that's primarily through baiting into hazard is relying on the presumption of individual agency not to be baited into a hazard. Right? It's the same thing as democracy is adding everybody democracy is the same thing as saying everybody's equally capable of making judgments. and they're not. So the underlying root of this is what Luke brought up earlier, which is the aristocracy of everybody believing everyone is equally capable. No one believes everyone's equally capable. They just get away with baiting into hazard. And what would we call this? Merchant rule by merchants. I don't know what to call it. Corrupt capitalism, whatever. This over permission for corruption, baiting into hazard. This, under the pretext that everybody's equal, is the long-standing problem. It's actually why everybody's favorite whipping boy, the Jews, were always in trouble. They specialized in baitings into hazard, right, which are incredibly profitable. But why didn't we have the means of prohibiting baiting into hazard? Because some
We
people,
have tolerance for our women doing it.
well,
Women bait into hazard. We have a tolerance for it.
it's all they do is bait into hazard. So the question is, why didn't we outlaw in this past? Well, because in fact, some of us are capable of making adult judgments. So how do we know who's capable of making adult? This is Martin's question. How do we know who's capable of making adult judgments and who's not? So this has always been the problem. So the only way we get around this is the opposite position, which is we outlaw baiting into hazard and we grant special permission to certain circumstances, right? Because there's exception to limits. Okay, Luke, your body language just said the same thing.
Oh, we did have the means. Norms were the means. We've killed norms with laws.
Correct.
Yeah,
You know, the deviation or deviancy is fine. The deviant ought to be paying all of the costs of their deviation from norms until such time as that behavior is no longer deviating from norms, if ever. Right, but we've eliminated that by eliminating the norms, not the costs.
I mean, they're proud of their deviancy. They'd argue that
Right.
way.
And the cost of their deviancy is this: they're externalizing costs all the time. We've just eliminated the norms so that they wouldn't have to pay the costs of deviating from norms. We didn't eliminate the norms.
So basically, lawfare.
Yeah. And we don't have the norm of marriage anymore because now the law recognizes all of those civic unions as marriage.
Right.
So we no longer have access to the norm of marriage because it violates the law of marriage.
Shouldn't we have, well, what we should have done through commonality and concurrency was we should have institutionalized marriage as in other words, we should have legislated the norm, right?
Right.
Instead of breaking the norm.
But
What positive law, what you're saying is positive law exists for the sole purpose of undermining traditions, norms, and values.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We talked about family being an issue. Being a bachelor, the term bachelor as a social signal used to have political and economic liabilities associated with it. You wouldn't get elected to office if you were a bachelor because you weren't demonstrating the responsibility to maintain a family and create that intergenerational transfer of wealth. It used to have an actual stigma associated with it.
Yeah, my father had it's kind of interesting. My father had a friend when I was young. He called himself a confirmed bachelor.
Right.
Well, of course, he's the guy with the speedboat, the fast car that takes the top down,
right.
2 businesses and traveling and whatever shit, right? I remember we got an organ, a keyboard, the full size thing, because he just didn't have room for it in his house anymore, right? And he was like, "Hey, Bert, you want this? I know you're into this stuff." So my dad took on the organ. So why? Because as a bachelor, he had the basically full capture of his income. He also made me whack my head really fucking hard on the goddamn windshield of that boat by like blood streaming out.
Right. But norms allowed us to provide different standards to the bachelor than to the family man, but laws don't.
Is that true? Laws could, but they don't. Yes. I'm going to stick with positive law. Right. so if we had commonality and concurrency in dispute resolution, that norm, because that norm could have been codified. Right, the
Well,
best,
yeah, what I'm saying is, if you ask me why I didn't vote for the guy or why I didn't hire the guy, the norm says I could say because he's a bachelor. The law says that's discrimination. So I can't tell you that that's why I didn't hire the guy.
except discrimination is necessary, because it
Right.
means disambiguation, yeah.
So that cost of deviation from norms is still being assessed onto the commons, but we can't account for it because we got rid of the norm instead of accounting for the cost.
Agreed. So if I bring this back around, my problem is the problem I identify, not my problem, the problem I identify with the decadence movement is imposition of cost and risk on the intergenerational family, right, by the false promise of equality of individuals, right? And so where we could accept and tolerate if it didn't impose those costs. The problem with these things is we can't accept and tolerate them because they impose these costs. And why is that? Because these groups, once they can achieve any status, attention, or power, always double down on the next step, because the value of the in-group toward a success is self-reinforcing for continued incremental progress to the point of failure. Right? So all these movements take it too far. Whereas we need some limit that prevents a movement from getting too far, right? I mean, I'm watching you, Luke, to see if this is making sense.
Yeah, I mean, the need for limits is, I think, absolutely clear.
Okay.
The mechanism for the limits is where
And we need a reason for that, which is the primacy of the intergenerational family.
Yes.
In other words, the individual, the purpose of the individual is to create the greatest liberty for that you will create a family, a business, an industry, a society, a state, right? It's not so that you can maximize your consumption, hyperconsumption, or especially your hedonism at the expense of any of those things. I don't care how long we got. Okay, we did our 2 hours. Okay. Did we do this? Is like this is a pretty good conversation today, yes? Yes. All right. We've done our 2 hours. Anybody else have anything? Can I start any trouble with anybody? We did is Trump's in chances of getting elected increasing or decreasing? No comments.
It depends on how fortified they can make this next election cycle.
Apparently, Biden's going to run. He said he's going to run. Apparently,
Yeah,
He
probably.
better get a walker and walk, because he's not fit for running.
Better avoid stairs, yeah.
all right.
Trump still seems to activate a whole lot of people that otherwise don't get involved politically at all. So,
Like I said, until
Both
this,
sides.
until the states got out of line, I'm like, I'm gonna. If you listen to what his message is, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. It's fucking awesome. I don't know how he expects that to happen unless he has people ride in on a wave with him, and I don't see that happening. But
he should turn himself into the opposite of Soros, but do the exact same things that Soros does. He should be, filling DA positions across the country,
all right,
and funding that political effort.
too organized.
Yeah,
he's got a yeah. Anyway, so okay, the Trump thing. We did the trans thing, the Trump thing. The woke thing seems to be being normalized in the discourse. That seems to be okay. What about the China-Taiwan thing? Any other opinions on that? Yeah, I'm still with it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, we can't afford it to, but right now neither can they. So,
Right. Any feelings about the release of the secret documents, some of which are true and some of which are not? I haven't seen anything leak like that before. It's not very high level stuff though. Like it's admin level stuff. Any comments on that? No? Okay. All right. Well, those are my hot topics for the week. All right, that's all I have. Anyway, we had talked about having this meeting be about getting additional work done, because we're making tremendous progress right now on the Constitution. So hopefully I can wrap Martin in on that soon. But the real problem is I'm still only able to, like, I mean, I'm pretty, like, right now we've been talking for 2 hours. I'm tired. So this is what seems to happen is I last about 2.5 hours and I'm spent because I'm an old fart, something like that. I don't know. Probably both. All right. So aside from that, it looks like we had a great meeting. Today's Thursday, April 13th staff meeting. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a great day.